All right, and we're live. Hi, everyone. Hopefully this is coming through just fine. Welcome to our Cal State S4 Wednesday webcast. I am Tracy Reed, and I am project coordinator here at Cal State S4. And today we are going to be having a conversation with the one, the only, Judy Botelho, who is director of the Community Engagement Office at the Chancellor's Office. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks for that very warm welcome.
You're welcome.
Join everyone virtually today.
I know you love this, but you know what? I classed it up just for you. I wore my pearls today. So.
Thank you. I noticed those pearls. Those are very nice.
Thank you. Well, let me just quickly, before we jump into some of the things I've got, I want to remind folks of how these webcasts work, and hopefully they'll work well. We have enabled the ability for you to ask questions. So anyone who's listening in, you are welcome to ask questions if you have a Google Plus account. That's how you can ask questions. There should be a button that basically says ask your question here. You can just type it right in, and we'll get to those through the process of the webcast. If you do not have a Google Plus account, we have some construction going on here. I don't know if you can hear me still. But if you can you hear me?
And we're live.
I know. They're choosing to remove lead right now during our conversation. I'm sure that'll just last a second. You can also email me at calstatess4.com, support@calstatess4.com if you want to ask a question that way as well, and I'll kind of keep an eye on that. So after the broadcast as well, we're going to put this on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, so that's also a way you can access the information. So let's jump in. I'm going to switch over to you, Judy. Pick you up. Hi.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's fine. It's just a little distracting with the blasting they're doing behind you, but it's fine.
I'm hoping they'll finish here in a second. So let's start just with one of the reasons that we decided to do this with you is because I know it's kind of end-of-year reporting time, and that the Chancellor's Office requires end-of-year reports from all of the Cal States. And I'm less familiar with that process. I know that you all are pretty familiar with that process. But in terms of end of reporting, how does that work for you? What do you use those numbers for? And how does Cal State S4 help that process?
Great, thanks. So Tracy's really referring to the work that we do with service learning and community engagement offices. My office always collects data at the end of every year. And traditionally, we've used multiple modes of gathering the data. One is using the academic planning database that all of the campuses have to report to, and there's a service learning flag, and those courses get reported to me each term. The other way that we get data from the campuses has been through our year-end reports. And again, the directors fill out a report based on the funding that they receive from me. They report on such things as the number of service learning courses, the number of students who had opportunity to take service learning. And a few years ago, we started asking other community engagement data. For example, our students, which students are doing community service, and how many hours. That's been a little bit harder to track. So has our service learning data. So for example, with APDB, we know which service learning courses are offered by term. However, it's not always accurate. It's usually a department assistant or the department chair that's maybe completing that form. And unless the campus service learning director reviews that form, there's no way to definitely determine whether those service learning courses are accurate. It also doesn't tell us when service learning is an option in a course, how many students actually took service learning. So what I'm excited about for S4 is that it will provide an opportunity for us to have most accurate data. It doesn't S4, because it works with PeopleSoft, it will take the courses that are taught each term and all the students enrolled. And then because students have to then sign up for the service learning experience, we'll actually know in those courses where students have a service learning as an option, the number of students who actually did service learning versus the ones who didn't. We've never had that opportunity to determine that distinction. And so that's really exciting. For us, we'll also have more accurate data on the number of hours. Right now, most of the campuses report an estimate. So depending on campus policy, this could range between 15 to 40 hours for a service learning course. And so they estimate that. S4, because we'll be able to track the exact hours that a student is doing, we'll actually have better, robust numbers. And I think we'll see that students are doing more than even we indicate. Right now, our numbers indicate that we have 63,000 students doing service learning in more than 3,000 classes, and that about 1 million hours of service learning. I think, you know, again, we'll have that opportunity to really gather and know for sure what does that look like. The Chancellor's Office will also have access to know where are our students being placed. I often use this data not just to share information with legislators, the board, our presidents, our national and state partners, but we also use this data for our annual reports. And often legislators will ask us for information about what are we doing in their district. And oftentimes I have to contact the directors and say, okay, tell me where you are, or let me know what you're doing with veterans programs. And it takes a lot more work. With S4, they can quickly go in, do that search, and find that information. So for me, that's really exciting because it lessens the burden on our offices since we have had such severe budget cuts. And so that's really exciting. The other piece to S4 that's going to be really new, and I think what I'm most excited about, is that we're going to be able to capture any evaluation or rubrics that are developed. We'll be able to gather that information not just on a campus level, but on a system level. And we could feed that back into some system-wide initiatives that I'll talk about a little next in the questions. So hopefully that answered your question, Tracy.
Yeah, and you know, a few things that that brought up in my mind. One is that for those campuses who are in the process of trying to figure out their version of S4, and granted, it is a process for everyone because it incorporates your business practices, other people on your campus. So it's not just a simple thing. However, the simple part of it is that if you can get students to sign up, you are capturing data more successfully. I mean, if you do nothing when it comes to forms, when it comes to all of those other things, just to get the students to start signing up and capturing their placement is a huge step in the right direction. So I think that that's just something that when people get nervous and say, oh, I don't know how to configure it, it's a step-by-step process. Step number one, make it easy for the student to sign up so that we can capture that data, because nothing's better than having real, accurate data.
Correct. And you actually mentioned something that I failed to mention, which was this risk management piece. That's a critical part of why we collect data. The CSU has a general liability insurance program called SafeClip, and I always, every year, have to go through all the APDB reports, ensure there's no double counting, and provide that information to our system-wide risk managers. And now, again, that'll be more accurate than it has been in the past. I think the other great piece about the risk management piece is that it allows us to have, to build in a process that meets campus policy. All of the CSU campuses that are doing S4 and not doing S4 all have to create a policy in regards to Executive Orders 1064 and 1062, which is the internship and field trip policies. And again, S4 really helps support a user-friendly process to help manage that and create good systems that are less paperwork burdensome.
Right, right. And going back to, I want to just do a quick screen share. I'm going to switch over and see if I can't do this successfully. But to show our listeners, let's see if I can do it. In Cal State S4, which I think this is pretty great, but in Cal State S4 there is a button in the reporting section that basically is, oh, maybe I can't. I might not be able to do it while we're answering questions, but it's essentially a button that is for the Chancellor's office. And so you can get access to that data even if they don't do anything but have the integration system set up and the placements captured. So I think that that's important to note, is that it's built into Cal State S4 for you so that you can access that data pretty easily without even having, them to have to do too much except for already have the data in there.
Correct, and that's really exciting, not just for my office, but as you know, Tracy, we built S4 so that it would support other high-impact practices, not just service learning. And so as the campuses test and pilot S4 with service learning and look towards expanding towards including internships and undergraduate research, we have several campuses that will be using it in health and human services or social work. We'll get a lot more information about how effective are these programs in achieving student success, and we'll also be able to capture more data on these other types of high-touch programs that we haven't in the past. Service learning has been fortunate because we've had a system office for more than 15 years, but these other programs, it's been decentralized on a lot of campuses, and again, to be able to have that system-wide story and then give that information back to campuses, to our faculty, to our staff supporting these kinds of programs so that we can see how we're most effective. I'm excited. Actually, it's one of the most exciting things to me about this system.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't measure it, it's really tough to know what kind of an impact you're having. So it's, the proof is in the pudding and it's in the data, and we have to figure out a way to capture it, And if we're all capturing it in the same way, that it just ends up making things a whole lot easier for you, for sure.
Correct. And so with having it on Cal State S4 hosted, not only will I be able to have access to the Chancellor's Office report, but my colleagues here in the system office will be able, we can designate who in academic affairs should also have access to that data. I know one of your questions when we talked earlier was, how do we see S4 fit in with some system-wide vision for student success? And all of our campuses have been working towards the graduation rate initiative, and S4 will be part of one of the database systems that will help feed into what they're calling the Graduation Initiative Data Dashboard. And that's going to be unveiled today at the Board of Trustees meeting. So I really encourage folks to, if you haven't planned on doing it, to watch the live webcast of today's board meeting. And you'll learn a little bit more about the data dashboard, and then you can see kind of how S4 will play a critical role in helping to inform not only our faculty, campus leaders, but also our community about what we're doing and how successful we've been in ensuring student retention, persistence, and graduation rates. And S4, of course, will also be able to tell us a better story. Those are just the numbers. We want to, we also want to know how much of our students are learning. And so that part of S4 will help inform the data dashboard in a really critical way.
That's really awesome, and that's a great kind of big vision. Let's get now into a little bit nuts and boltsy, because that's big vision, and then we're going to go kind of really specific into S4. Now, in Cal State S4, those of you especially who are already implementing it on your campus, you're familiar with the issues addressed that have been outlined by the Chancellor's office, and I wanted to let folks know that we are moving toward kind of locking those down, because we don't want them to be all over the place for different campuses, or there's some different reasons. Anyway, Judy, will you address sort of how issues addressed are used for you and the need to make sure that's consistent between campuses?
Correct. And, Tracy, just like the campuses are evolving in developing their S4 site, us on the Cal State S4 team, we're evolving on kind of making decisions based on what's best and kind of, like I meant, like you said, this larger vision about capturing accurate and consistent data across the CSU. And so one of the things we didn't originally think about was the issues addressed and how critical it was to have consistent language and use of what issues are we addressing across the system, across multiple programs, whether it be social work or service learning, internships, or undergraduate research. And so one of the reasons, so we decided that it was best to lock down the issues addressed. We went back and got campus feedback to determine, what could be the umbrella terminology that made sense for, that we saw some consistency across the board. What we have done is, while we've locked down those issues addressed fields, we've also allowed campuses to use the tag feature. So if there was something more specific, so if you called it in your, let's say, give me one, Tracy, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but maybe
education is a great example.
Okay, education's a great one. We broke down issues addressed by early education, high school, middle school, elementary. But, there might be something more specific that you're doing within education that you as a program want to capture. For my purposes, for reporting, we don't need to necessarily know that, but for your purposes, when you're doing a search and you want to know, well, what kind of gang prevention programs are we doing in high schools, or conflict resolution programs in middle schools? That's not, we might have that in S4 in a different area, but again, if you want to see for yourself, what am I doing specifically in elementary or middle school, whether it's tutoring or after-school programs, you can use the tag feature to be more specific and use your own terminology, and you can do a search that way for your own reporting. But what the lockdown does for me is, I'm able to then just do a report when a legislator comes to me, or the chancellor says, what do we do, how many elementary schools are we working with across the system? That's really what he wants to know.
Right.
And so the specifics of what we're doing in those schools, not as important on some, data elements, unless we're doing some grant writing. And that, again, is where I would encourage campuses to really use the tags, because if you are doing some grant writing, that will help you in the long term as well.
Right. And so for folks, just to let them know, we have got a list where we've really worked hard to try and make it broad enough that it will fit the needs of campuses, but like you're saying, use those tags. We'll be rolling that out over like the next month. If you already have sites tagged, we have a counterpart of the lockdown that will work for existing issues addressed. So I want to make sure that's clear. Yeah. So more on that. That'll be great. And then again, a reminder. I know we've got quite a few viewers at this point. If anyone has any questions about that, feel free to pop them over my way. Here comes one. Yeah. So okay. So here's a question. I can select it. Hold on. This is when we get fancy here. All right. This is the question we're answering here. What if different programs have different issues addressed for a site? This is where tags come in. So that's a good point, because we're trying to get more programs to use one site for efficiency, for reporting. So when you have different programs and they have different issues addressed, how would that work? Do you want to tackle it?
So I think one of the suggestions that we'll have, and we'll put this out when we post it on Cal State S4, is if we want you to use our issues addressed topics, but if you, again, call it something different and that's how you're going to do your report, use the tag feature, because that's how you're going to run your reports. But you have to understand that we have to run our reports and be consistent throughout. It's still going to mean the same thing to me system-wide, but you're going to, if you have a specific name that you call something, or if you're working around, youth foster care. We saw a lot of different names around foster youth or youth services and adoption. And so we really had to kind of figure out how we were going to address these things across the system and across programs. So I do think that the tag feature is going to be really critical. And I encourage folks. Hopefully I answered our viewers' question.
Yeah, I think so. And do you like how I move from room to room?
Yes. I wish I could do that.
It's just, you know, the lead paint is just coming off the building. I thought I'd stay away from the toxins. Well, okay, so this is good though. So issues addressed, and really thank you for the explanation about how S4, how you use the S4 data, and why that was really important for you and your office to capture that. I'm looking at the clock is right behind me, so I'm looking. We're at 10:20, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and be respectful of both your time as well as the fact that I know folks are going to be listening to the Chancellor. The Chancellor's speech pretty soon too. So, Judy, thank you so very much.
11 o'clock, State of the CSU.
As always, this will be on our YouTube channel, and so it can be reviewed. But thank you to everyone who's listening in, and we will keep you posted, and we will be in touch about the issues addressed piece and how that's going to change. And have a great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Judy.